And now I'd like to welcome our speaker. So Dr. Dastoor was born in Mumbai, India, and came to Montreal in 1973 after 10 years in Nigeria at the University of Ibadan, where she was a senior research fellow in psychiatry and project coordinator for the World Health Organization project in schizophrenia. Dr. Dastoor has recently retired as co-director of the program in dementia with psychiatric comorbidity at the Douglas Mental Health Institute, University Institute. And she is currently assistant professor in psychiatry at McGill University and is the chair of the education committee of the McGill University Research Center on Studies in Aging. She specializes in assessment of dementia, especially Alzheimer's, and has developed an assessment tool for the prognosis of this disease. Dr. Dastoor was also the president of the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal from 1986 to 1991. So, Dr. Dastoor, hello and welcome.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you for inviting me to the Westmount Library series. And thank you everybody for joining in, because on this nice cold day, it's much nicer to be at home and listening to people and something which you are interested in, successful aging. So I'm going to start with giving you some statements which we all talk about, and then we warm up a little bit, and then we move into our topic itself. Because aging is one thing, but successful means different things to different people. For some, it may be success in money, having lots of money as you grow older, very comfortable. For some, it may be good health, be able to run the marathon, you have a good health. For some, it may be good family, a large family, grandchildren being with you and together with you. So there's success means different things to different people. So let's see what we can bring up with success. Success means friendship, success means relationship, success means many different things. So what we would like to do is we have to live our life and forget our age. Do not regret getting older, because it's a privilege, delight to many. Everybody cannot live to old age. Everybody wants to live long, but nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to get old. I wish, another sentence which we always say is, I wish I had let myself be happy. Sometimes we are so absorbed in doing work, so absorbed in doing other things that we not have any time for ourselves, and we are not happy with ourselves. Sometimes we say, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. We bottle up our feelings, we don't express. Sometimes we feel it's good to be angry and say what you're feeling, so you let it out rather than keep suppressing it inside you, and that affects your health. And the last one I would say is, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends and family. We let our friends and family go. We don't really talk to each other. Sometimes we don't phone each other. Now it's so much easier with Zoom and with WhatsApp and with chats and things like that. So we need to keep in touch so that we are always together. I'll give you some pictures of people who we feel have aged successfully. There's the Queen there, there's Margaret Trudeau there, there's somebody doing Tai Chi at about 90 years of old, and these three young ladies who are dancing away, enjoying themselves. And for them, that's success. You have this cover here which says, aging is an attitude. There's a seniors masters swimming competition. And there's a very famous saying by Robert Browning, which is, grow old with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made. And there's this relationship, which is very important for success in aging. We have the same thing, painters, people getting together and having a little chat and having a card game. So John Kennedy in 1963 said, it is not enough for a great nation merely to add to the years of life. Our object also must be to add new life to those years. Very, very true. But then in 1891, it's even older, Oscar Wilde said, to get back to my youth, I would do anything in the world except take exercise, get up early, or be respectable. Funny. So if I said that there was a youth pill which I would give you and by which you would live longer, you would live as long as you want. I presume not. If you think that you're going to be, you have the concept of aging or being old or being wrinkled or being bent off or being not having good health or being going to the doctors every day, if that's your image of ageism and age, then you will not take it. You will not want to live, add more years to your life. But if I told you that you'd be healthy, you'd be fine, you'll have enough money to live comfortably, you'll be surrounded by friends and family and relationships, yes, I think you would take the pill. I would take the pill too. So it depends on your concept of what you feel like aging is and what you feel success is. So now we see that the concept of successfully aging can be traced back to 1950, and it was popularized by 1980. Before that, aging was just thought of to be as a part of your life process, because everybody ages. You age from the day you are born. The first day you're 1 day old, you're 10 days old, you're 1 month old, 1 year old, 10 days, 10 years old, 20 years old, and that goes on. So every day you're aging. Every day when you get up in the morning, you're 1 day older, and you look in your mirror and you don't look any different. You look the same thing as you did the last day before. But if you look at your pictures of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and then you see them and you say, oh my God, is that me? I look so different. Where did all my hair go? What happened to my hair? My body, I can't get into my dresses, you know. So those are the different concepts. So we need to discuss 3 different concepts of aging. No, 3 different concepts of our title, Aging Successfully. What is aging? Number 1. Number 2, successful aging. What do we mean by success? And 3 is this different strategies we can use to accept aging, because non-acceptance of aging, by pretending that you're not getting older, by pretending that you're young and you can still do the same things you did before, is the greatest obstacle of being successful in your aging process. Because aging is a process. Butler, Dr. Butler, one of the greatest gerontologists of our times, who is dead now, he said that aging is sort of a forgotten process of our lifespan, because it is, you are born, you get, you are in your youth, you get married, you have your career, and then you age, and that it is a process. So we seem to be neglecting the last part till now, and it's now that we begin to think that how can we make use of our aging process or aging of the last few years of our life. So I told you what successful was, with different things to different people, and strategy is we talked of that too. So in 2014, there was a survey done of 1,800 older Americans to ask people, what do they consider, what age is a person considered old? Now, we all have our own concepts. You have a world concept of what age. So people in their 40s says that 63 years is considered old. People in their 50s said 68 years is considered old. People in their 60s said 73 is considered old. It's always a little bit more than your own age. But when you went to the 70s, people thought 65 was considered old. So they went backwards. Then they asked a man at what age, no, when they asked people that what age is a man considered old, and men said at 70. And women also said that men are considered old at 70. I think we all agree to that. Then they asked women, at what age is a woman considered old? And men said at 68. I don't know why they came up with that figure. And then women said women are considered old at 75. You may agree or you don't agree with that, but this is what the people said. Then we have to think of the lifespan of how long are we living? And it increases, our lifespan increases every century. In Canada, in 1867, there were 3.5 million people, total population. In 2012, this population jumped to 34.92 million people, after which 14.4%, that is 5.5 million people, were over the age of 65. When we go to 2036, this number jumps to 23.7%, is increasing. There are more and more of us living older. In 2051, 24.7 million people will be the age of 75. In Quebec, in 2011, there was 15.7 percent rather over the age of 65, which is higher than the in Canada. And in 2036, there'll be 25.1% over the age of 65. So there's a lot of people. By 2025, the population over 65 of both US and Canada will be 25%. That's a lot of people. By 2050, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under 15. Now that will have a large impact on our social systems, on our wealth, on our welfare system, on our social insurance policies, and all sorts of things. It'll, in our voting procedures, it'll have a big impact. So the life expectancy in Canada. In 1920, an average person born in 1920 expected to live to 59 years. In 2010, a person born in 2010 was expected to live 79 years, 81.5 years for women and 75.9 years for men, which means that there are, if you look at it another way around, there are I can't even read among the figures, 611,000 hours in 70 years. If you live to 100 years, that becomes 873,000 hours. So what do we do with this 40% increase in our lifespan? This is lots of, how do we plan our lives? How do we live for those 40% more years? We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to reinvent ourselves, retool ourselves. What do we do with that extra time? If you are retiring at age 65, maybe that age is going to go up to 80. Things are changing. And there are, even at present, there are 3,130 Canadians over the age of 100 years living at present. I mean, if you look at it another way, when you go to buy cards, Hallmark cards, nobody buys cards anymore anyways. But there used to be, the cards used to go up till say 75 or 80, and then you had a wheel which you turned around, and maybe you had some 100 years there. But now you can buy cards for 100 years. So everybody's changing. There's a whole concept of people living longer and people wanting to live well longer. And I don't blame them. Everybody wants to live well longer. So the challenge now is, how do we help all these people to age well? How do we plan to help people reinvent themselves? What do we do with those extra hours? How do we fulfill those extra hours? So then now what we said that we have to first process is how to understand, need to understand aging. So there are 4 distinct aging processes. One is chronological age, which is based on the number of years we live since birth. And the chronological age does not correlate to functional age. You can be young old at 60, is considered 65 to 74 is considered young old. A middle age old is 75 to 84, and the oldest old is 85 plus. But the chronological age does not necessarily correlate with your functional age. You can be 90 years old, but still physically you're quite fit and you're running and you're doing all sorts of things as somebody like, say, age 70 or 60. Or the opposite could be true, that you could be 50 years old, 60 years old, but your body does not function as well. Or you're mentally, you feel that you're very old. And so there's no correlation between how old you feel and how old you really are. There's no correlation between them. We want to have a good correlation, but there isn't any. The next aging process is your biological age. How does the physical status that reduces the efficiency of organ systems? We have different organs in our body and they all age at different times. And every cell in our body has an age limit. There's what are called telomeres in our body, which decrease by every day or every so often. And that sort of elevates what the age of each organ is going to be. Your heart may be working at very good age. The other organs in your body are giving up, but your heart is still pumping. So your biological age is the efficiency of your organ system. The next aging process is your psychological age. That is the changes in your sensory and your perceptual processes, in your eyesight, in your hearing, in your cognition, in your adaptive capacity, in your personality, all those psychological processes are also part of your aging process. And the fourth distinct process is your social process. The individual's changing role and relationship with the family and friends and the informal support. In some families, the elderly person, or even in a couple of decades ago, the elderly in the family was very well respected. They were thought to be the patriarch of the family. Whatever they did, their role went, their word went. There's some cultures that they pay a lot of importance to the elderly in the family. Nowadays, that is not the case. The elderly or your grandparents are more or less relegated to the background. Maybe the grandchildren will phone them once in a while or send them a WhatsApp message, but that's not the norm. So the social concept is changing. So the person has to develop their own friendships. They have to cultivate their friendships when they are approaching older age, so that they have a pool of people, the pool of relationships on whom they could rely on and they could depend upon. So social network is extremely important as we age. In addition to that, there are two other components which we have to pay attention to. One is adaptation, because however much you try to be healthy, however much you try to do things well, eat well, sleep well, there will be a time when you get some sort of a problem, some sort of a disability, you get an accident, you do something happens, and your life is turned upside down. So how do we adapt? Accepting and adapting to the situation is very important. Not only do you adapt, but you also have to accept that these are parts of life and it's necessary to heal oneself. A cure or some disease which you have may or may not be possible, but you have to accept, adapt, and carry on with your life. You just can't sit back and say, why does this happen to me? What has happened to me? I can't do anything else. That's the end of my life. That will not work. So this, you have to have some sort of a mechanism by which you learn to adjust to life. In addition to that, we have to be aware of your medical history, your personal health risks, have your physical exams and regular checkups so that you take care of whatever you can capable of taking care of. Otherwise, you have to leave it to chance. So again, I'm asking you, why is, or ask, you can ask yourself, why is there a discrepancy between chronological age and biological age? The answer to some extent is the interaction between genetics, what you're born with, and the environment you're living in. There's a lot of things in the environment which affect your genetics. But the genetics is one part of the risk. Only about 30% of your genetics influences how long you're going to live or how well you're going to live. The other 70% is depending on the lifestyle choices you make. And those lifestyle choices are more important. And remember that there's no effective anti-aging medicines or creams or Botox things can reverse your aging process. That is your choice of how your lifestyle and how you're going to go on making live your life as comfortably and as successfully as possible. Okay, so the models of aging, there are three components. We would like to have low probability of disease or disability. We don't want that. We have to make that as minimum as possible. On the other hand, we want high cognitive and physical functioning. We want to keep our minds as active as possible and keep our physical body as functional as possible. So that's another model of aging. And the third model is to active engagement with life. We have to find some sort of self-satisfaction with what you do. But to find satisfaction with marriage, with children, with your friendships, with your community service, with your religion. They said these people who are happy live much longer, or at least 10 to 12 years longer than people who are unhappy and you are not satisfied. You can be satisfied with doing things outside of yourself rather than being self-centered and all the time thinking of yourself to do things, by going to a soup kitchen or by coaching people or by even doing charitable work. Even the very act of just donating money is very satisfying to you, because sometimes everybody can't go out and do things, do things, but even to think of other people, to be generous, that's very satisfying. Okay, so how do we now preserve health and brain? How do we preserve health of our brain, of our mind, and our body for success? Because all these three things are interrelated. Your brain affects your mind affects your body, and all those three things work together for success. So the first thing, as we said, was lifestyle. How do we have our lifestyle? Cognitive activities, what we do, the positive attitudes in our life, and then the use of efficient strategies. We have to have some sort of strategies to keep our minds active. Okay, lifestyle. Thoughts, emotions, attitudes are all key determinants on how you age and their effect on health. Stress and de-stress invoke the relaxation response. For example, breathing practice, yoga, stroking a cat or a dog or an animal or whatever pet you have in the house. Now that we even have robot animals for people with dementia in nursing homes. I just read that. So again, we'll do that a little later on. Is everybody goes through stress. There's no person in this world who has no stress. But what we manage, how we manage that stress, how we deal with that stress is more important than the stress itself. And we'll talk about that. So how do we preserve brain health and memory? Most important is exercise, diet, sleep, control your stress, as we said, and social and leisure activities. What sort of exercises? Exercise we should consider as a molecule fertilizer for your brain. We use fertilizers for the soil. We use fertilizers for a food. It's supposed to be a fertilizer for your body, but we don't think of our mind. We think of a physical exercise, but we must remember that even physical exercise like aerobics and neurobics help the physically, and the physical part of it affects your mind, and you circulate the blood circulation in your mind, in your brain much better. How much exercise should you do? 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. That should be plenty, but proper exercises. Diet is another important thing. What sort of a diet? Pro-memory diet, low in saturated fat, high in fruits and vegetables, vitamin B12, which is found in folate, which is like citrus, fruits, spinach, asparagus, beans, folic acid, vitamin E, which you find in nuts and oils. They all protect your brain. Also, sleep is very necessary for memory functioning. We think that sleep is only necessary for you reviving if your body is very tired and you have to fall asleep so your body relaxes. But more than your body, the sleep is important for your brain, because the brain is working the whole day and the brain is functioning the whole day, and that brain needs to be relaxed. It's said that we are living in a very sleep-deprived generation. We are not sleeping as much as we should. We need to sleep at least 6 to 7 hours a day. And I will talk about that a little later. So sleep deprived generation, especially the younger children. If you have grandchildren, it's very important that you impress on them that they should be sleeping enough times to rejuvenate their brain. And as I think we all remember that we were younger when we wanted to remember things before our exams or before important interviews. We would think about it and then fall asleep, because we always thought that with sleep, the things regurgitate in your mind and you're able to reproduce that better the next day. And we talked of stress, control your stress, because with stress increases a hormone in your body, which is called cortisol. And that cortisol hormone goes into shrinks your hippocampus. Now, hippocampus is a structure in the middle of your brain where all your memories, what I'm talking now, just now, you're taking it in and it goes into your hippocampus and it stays there. And when you need it, we brought it out again. So with stress, and you need a good size hippocampus for all these memories to be absorbed in there. So if you're stressed out and you have more cortisol, that hormone shrinks the hippocampus. And so when people who are stressed out, they cannot think very well. They cannot make decisions well. Under stress, they make wrong decisions. So stress is a bad hormone. Again, there are 2 types of stress. There's acute stress and there's chronic stress. If there's an acute stress, you have a stress, the situation is finished and the stress is gone, you're back to normal. But then there is chronic stress, which goes on and on and on. For somebody you're looking after a sick relative, if you have a financial problems, if you have a work problem, and that alters the brain function. So we talk about that again later, but this is just the, the major points. And again, I told you about social and leisure activities is important because that relaxes your brain, that gives you chance to meet with other people, that you socialize with people, you talk to people, you share your problems, and that gives you more energy. Okay, walking exercises. What are the different types of exercises? Walking is the best aerobic exercise. It improves the circuit in the brain. It controls memory, reasoning, attention. Excuse me. Strength training to build and maintain your bone and muscles, which diminishes with age. As we grow older, our body, our bone and muscles diminish, but we need to keep them in shape. So we need to do some strength training with weights or dumbbells or whatever, 2 to 3 days a week for about 30 minutes. Another very important part of exercise is flexibility and balance training, because this can prevent aches and pains and stiffness in your joints. And balance is very important as we grow older, because we are likely, so if you don't have a good balance and good flexibility, we're likely to fall. And once you fall and you break a bone, you break your hip, you break your leg, it's not that it won't mend, it will mend, but it'll take longer time to mend. And then the quality of your life will not be as good as it was before, because the mending part will not be as good. And so once that mobility is not there, the quality of your life is affected. You cannot function, you cannot do as things that you wanted to do. So functioning, flexibility, and balance training is a good thing to keep in mind for a successful aging process. And the last point is in exercise is yoga. Gentle forms of yoga, because that gives you flexibility of stretching to do all sorts of things which keeps your body in shape. What are the benefits of doing exercise? You may say, why should I do exercise? Because it improves your memory. Walking and weight training improves your verbal memory. The greater gains for walkers than for weightlifters. People, even if you walk half a mile or half an hour, 20 minutes a day, you can't go out, I suppose, in this very cold weather, but if you walk indoors or go into a mall and walk around, that improves your lifestyle. Spatial memory, touch, stretching and toning, there's less cognitive decline but in all over the thing, endurance training, weight training, they may have all different physiological effects within the brain and cause improvements in different types of memory. So people say that exercises improves memory, which is quite true. And if you practice that, you will see it for yourself. Other benefits of memory, direct benefits, is it also physically, it reduces your insulin resistance. Those of us who are diabetic, if you do regular exercises, your insulin intake will be much lower, and you'll see that your index is lower. It reduces inflammation in your body. It stimulates the release of growth factors, the chemicals in your brains that affect the health of your brain cells, so that you're able to grow new brain cells. Before, we were taught that once your cells are dead in your brain, that's gone. And so that's the end. Your cells are finished and your brain deteriorates. But that's not true. The new research shows that the brain is capable of regrowing new vessels, growing new cells, and so that the brain keeps functioning. And the indirect effect of the benefit, these are the direct effects. The indirect effects are, it improves your mood and it improves your sleep. You can sleep better. It reduces your anxiety and your stress level. So you can see that you have a lot of benefits by doing exercises. And you don't have to go to the gym every day. You don't have to be a big athlete to do exercises. Even a few simple things at home, stretching, weightlifting, aerobics, jumping are enough to do it. Other parts of the brain, I don't want to read everything, parts of the brain that controls thinking. What sort of exercises? Swimming, dancing, tennis, even household activities, for example, mopping the floor, raking the leaves, or snow shoveling, anything that gets your heart pumping is counting. But you have to make exercise a habit. You can't just say you do it one day and then you forget about it the whole week and you remember, oh, I haven't done some exercise today, let me do it. You have to make it a fun thing and you have to do it regularly. Yeah, and the thing is that to make exercises a habit and fun, you should do it other people, so that when you do it, walk with somebody else, you can do some exercise in a group class, so that gives you some extra motivation to do things. It reduces your heart disease, stroke, diabetes, all that. I mean, it's not rocket science. It is understood what happens when you do exercise. Diet. When we talk about diet, and we talked a bit about diet. It's a whole grain. What we need to eat: whole grain beans, sweet potatoes, winter squashes, avocado, mushrooms, nuts, all the things which are available throughout the year in different seasons. Nut butter made from walnuts, cashew, almonds, and to use extra virgin olive oil if you can, if you like that. Fruits, all sorts of fruits, but most important, not most important, but have more effect is berries. Blueberries are very good. Tomatoes, oranges, yellow fruits, everything, all that. Black corn, eggs, flax seeds. Before we read that you should eat only one egg a week. Now it is changed to one egg a day, because the proteins in the eggs are very important for your body. Then fiber is important, giving cereals when we eat cereals. Red wine, that we all love, but the mold on the skin acts as an antioxidant. It should be red wine and not white wine. So women and men should have, we could all drink a glass of wine, but men can drink a lot more than the women, and women for one glass at our age is okay. Chocolate, 70% cocoa content in moderation is good for your heart. What you need to avoid are saturated fats, products made from partially hydrogenated fats, unskinned chicken, animal protein. All those proteins are, all those fats, this unsaturated saturated fats are not good for you, because it lines your veins and your arteries with extra fat, which it clogs the flow of your blood. Okay, in wellness diet, what is important is fiber. What is fiber? Is a non-digestible plant-derived carbohydrate which passes through your digestive tract, and it has no caloric value, but it is good to pass your digestive food. Most of us eat about 15 grams a day when we should be eating 20 to 35 grams a day, and it is found only in plant food, nuts and grains. It's not found in meat or chicken. It's only found in plant food. And the fiber reduces the risk of heart disease, strokes, cancers, obesity, all sorts of things, because it keeps your gut functioning well. And the bulk controls your urge to eat more. So people with diabetes are also advised to eat more food which contains high in fiber, because with fiber you feel full and you don't feel like eating more. And with diabetes, if you keep eating more and more, it's not good for your sugar levels. And there are two types of fibers. There's a soluble fiber and there's an insoluble fiber. The soluble fiber slows down your absorption of fat and sugar, helping to regulate your sugar levels, binds and removes your cholesterol from your bloodstream. The insoluble fiber, on the other hand, attaches to the waste in the body, making it bulkier to get rid of it from your bowels. And to be considered a good source of fiber, the food must have between 3 to 5 grams of fiber. So when you buy your food, when you buy your cereals, when you buy your tins, look at the labels. Always look at the labels as to what it contains. How much percentage of fibers is there? How much percentage of protein is there? How much percentage of carbohydrates and sugar is there? And buy accordingly. If I see a label which says 9 grams of sugar, I put it back. There's too much sugar to be eating it. So if there's 1 or 2 grams of sugar, that's fine. Other thing, as I mentioned, is rest and sleep, which is also important for your lifestyle. Rest is important if you have to make time during the day when you're without stimulation, doing nothing. An afternoon nap to rejuvenate your brain is important. Because sleep, as I said before, rejuvenates your brain. And we are a sleep-deprived generation. Minimize early waking, postpone evening meals. until after dark. Sometimes we think that, oh, I can go to bed as late as I want because I'll make it up on the weekend. I'll sleep in late in the weekend. That doesn't happen. You can't store sleep. And sleep is so important because you can do without food for a longer period. You can go on a starvation diet for a longer period, but you can't go without rest and sleep. Sleep, a person can go function normally for about 16 hours without sleeping. And that is why all the shifts are really about 8-hour shifts. At the most, they're double shifts, because after that, your brain doesn't function. The pilots don't go on flying for all the time. They have to break in between. The nursing staff has to change shifts. The residents were also given longer periods of working. That's not good, because then your brain doesn't work. When people go into tortures, they are sleep deprived. So in the end, they say whatever the torturer wants you to say. And that's not the correct way of working. So your brain does not function after 16 hours of non-sleeping. You must sleep, and you have to have, because it rejuvenates your brain. The other thing is important, is touch and sex. Touch is the basic requirement for optimum health. We are living in more and more in a society, in our nursing homes, in our old age residences, where there's not too much touching, but now we're beginning to have what we call hug therapy, laughter therapy, so that there's more human contact. Before, when I used to work in the Douglas Hospital, when I started in 1973, there was hardly any touching with our patients. The patients, the only time we touched the patients when we had to change their diapers, when they had to change them or give them a bath, or when they lined up for their cigarettes. Now nobody has cigarettes, so nobody smokes it in their hospitals. But at that time, when we used to light their cigarettes, touch them, give them, that was the only time. Now times are changing. And so touch therapy, touch is basic requirement for optimal health. And because even now in the pandemic, you heard people say that what I miss is a human touch. I miss a hug. I want a hug. And people want that warmth. So we say you hug yourself, and that gives you the feeling that there's another human being, that is flesh. Sometimes animals help you with the touch because you're touching another body, another warmth body. Massage on a regular basis is also good to keep your body moving. So those are the things, the lifestyle changes. Now, in the lifestyle, what we have to know is resilient. How resilient are we to absorb the changes which are taking place? This resistance to stress is called resilience. If not, stress is the outcome. If you're not resilient, we have to develop that ability to have confidence in yourself, to think that, yes, I have got this problem, I'll be able to solve it and not just fall down to pieces. If you don't have resilience, you are brittle. You have no effort. Your attitude is not there to make that extra effort to overcome whatever obstacle is in your way. So you have to teach our children from a younger age how to accept things as they come along. If we're giving in to our children to everything, we're not saying no to anything, whatever they want, we give them, then they don't know what it is to be not fulfill their wishes. So they have to be able to learn how to accept no's. So resilience is something like that. If you don't have resilience, your stress increases. So the influence of lifestyle choices is the balance between your exercises, what you do, the diet which you do, on your metabolism and your neurocognitive health. So there's a balance in that, if you can see that. You can't just keep on doing exercise and no diet and say that it's okay, I'm doing changing my lifestyle. You can't have a good diet and no exercise. That won't work either. So lifestyle, you have to train yourself to be successfully aging in the last part of your life, early in life, in order to prevent or counteract the risk factors such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Later in life, we need to cultivate a healthy, disciplined lifestyle from early on in life. It may be sometimes for somebody who's in 80, it may be a bit too late, but then there's hope. You still can do things to improve yourself. And persistent effort is required to develop resilience, which is the opposite of stress. You must remember that. If you always are full of stress, you have not developed the ability to accept the changes which take place, or to modify your situation, or to work around your situation. Those are the things for how you develop a resilience. Meditation is also important. You can do push-ups, crunches, gyms, personal trainers. People have many different strategies for building bigger muscles and stronger bones. But how do you build a bigger brain? How do you build a brain which can be more effective? That is important. Okay. So the lifestyle at different age stages should serve the purpose of life itself. It's important for each one of us to contemplate the purpose of life. As we grow older, we need to focus more and more on our spiritual level, on being a spiritual practices should take priority. Aging will not be a problem. It should be a delightful experience. You should not consider it as a burden. The cognitive activities, we should learn to solve new activities, one activity a year, which is active activity and not a passive activity, to keep the brain working. I'll go quickly through this. Aging is inevitable. We all know that. We all have to age. There's nobody who can escape aging. We are older one day. Every day we are one day older. But memory loss is not as inevitable. Areas in the brain which are vital to the memory are hippocampus. I've talked that a little bit, which controls your short-term memory, which I'm talking, which you're reading. It goes into your short-term memory, and you have to pay attention to what that. If you're reading something, but your mind is wandering, you're thinking of something else, what you're reading is not going to go into your short-term memory. Your frontal lobes are the ones are also important for memory because they control, they process your memory as well. Amygdala, which is a little organ in the middle of your brain, controls your emotions. Every emotional activity you have, every activity rather you have is always connected with some sort of an emotion. You have a happy emotion, or you have a sad emotion, you have an angry emotion, but that emotion gets connected to that event. And so that is, amygdala controls that part of it. And thalamus, why is it going away? Yeah, thalamus is what controls attention. When we had little children and they were crying, we would jump out of bed to go and see what's happening. Now, if your thalamus is not working very well, or you're not paying attention, it doesn't matter who's crying there. Their parents will look after them. The activity in the hippocampus and the frontal lobe slows down with age. It's true. That's due to the loss of connections or synapses between the nerve cells. But so we have to keep that active going. The different memory systems, what we call as declarative memory, which is where you have to consciously remember an action. In the explicitive memory, we have episodic memory, which declines with age, where it's a memory for events. Some of the events which are fresh in your mind are those which happen, and those happen which very long time ago are not, they fade. Semantic memories, memory for facts, for words, for images, for learned materials, that does not decline with age. Your speech you don't lose your speech, you don't lose your vocabulary as you age, and is not depending on any cues. It may become temporarily inaccessible. You may see somebody on the road, you may forget their name, you can't know who they are, you may not get the right word out at the right time, but that's temporary, it's not permanent. Implicit memory is the non-declarative, which is procedural memory. Memory for learning, automatic action, you're bicycling, you're brushing your teeth, you're tying your shoelace, you're doing everything which you do with your hands and feet, which is procedural, which is, you don't need a specific memory for that. It comes automatically. The brain is hardwired for storing visual information better than auditory information. If I was talking for you for an hour without any PowerPoints or without any slides, you would not remember things as well as you, and just talking, just auditory, you would not remember it as well as you're seeing it now on the screen, and you're looking at it, and it's absorbing it. If you want to remember a visual scene, you have to close your eyes and keep it in your mind, and that your visual cortex gets stimulated, and you remember that information much better than somebody spoke to you about it. But this is not important. Okay. So how do we use efficient strategies for memory? We have to make internal meaningful things, mnemonics, to make memory systems, verbal and visual. We have agendas, we have cues, we have Post-it, we have a filing system, we have making lists. We make lists, but all that thing is to help you to remember, because visually, if you have your agenda, if you have your cues, you will remember things much better. Changes in the healthy aging. What happens? Structural changes. Whatever happens, your body does age, but we have to keep it in shape, but the body does age. The structural changes takes place, the cerebral ventricles in the brain expand, there's a loss of brain plasticity, brain is not as fast as it was when you were 20 years old. That is why all the big musicians, mathematicians, all the people who have done immense work have done it in the earlier part of their lives, in the 20s and the 30s, and maybe in the 40s. You have very few people doing extraordinary things in their late 80s. Then you have chemical changes take place in your brain. You have neurotransmitters and receptors alter. There are chemicals in your body which do change. These either slow down, they don't produce as much as before, but our job as people is to keep them in shape as long as we can. And then there is a functional changes also, which takes places. Your orientation, sometimes you forget what date it is, you need your calendar. Sometimes your attention is not as smart, and sometimes your memory is not as sharp. So we have to keep all these things in good working condition, all this to be able to function into a healthy aging process. Now, this is more important for people as we go along. What is stress? Stress is a biological reaction to physical or environmental stress. Maybe several decades ago, several millenniums ago, when we were living in the forest, when we were living in the jungles, there were animals around, and we saw animals, or the human person saw the animal, and there was either a flight or fight reaction to the body. You either fight with the thing or you ran away. So both those things, you needed some biological reaction in your body. And so we'll talk about that. So there is what we call acute stress, which is good, and some acute stress is necessary to be able to function. And then there is chronic stress, which is not good, because that accelerates aging. Because as I said, the chronic stress increases, shrinks your hippocampus. You can't remember things very well. You can't function very well. You can't make good decisions very well. So that accelerates your aging process. And stress can be sorry about that. Stress can be expressed as both physical. When you're very stressed out, you get headaches, you get a fatigue, you have a loss of appetite, you don't sleep very well. Mental, you can be expressed in mental when you're impaired memory, as I said, lack of concentration, inability to make decisions. When you're stressed out, you also become very emotional. You become tense, you become nervous, sometimes you feel like crying, you become frustrated, you become depressed, you become anxious. All those emotions are due to your high stress. And when that situation is gone, it lowers down. You're not depressed as much, you're not as anxious as much. And it also is expressed in your behaviors. Sometimes you start smoking. People who never smoke begin to smoke. People start drinking, they go into binge drinking. There's overeating. People put on weight. Either you overeat or you don't eat. You become anorexic. There's nail biting, things which you never did before. There's swearing. You become people who never swore in their life begin to use bad language, become impatient. And all those things are part of your stress expressions. How do we manage stress? If you're resilient, as we talked about before, if you've learned life lessons, we know how to cope with situations, then you're able to manage that stress. You're able to find solutions to stressful situation, able to find different things. Or if we don't have that resilience in us, we become brittle, and then our immune system strength is decreasing. Our blood pressure rises, our vision and hearing deteriorates, and we don't function as well as we should. So we should try to develop resilience in our life rather than being brittle and collapsing every time a situation arises. Because stress impacts our performance, and it impacts our ability to be satisfied with life. And if you're not satisfied with life, you can't be aging successfully. What are the common causes for stress? Job loss, finances, worries about RRSPs or health. But now I think our biggest worries in stress is they are COVID. Our biggest worry is a lockdown. curfews, and we don't know what our vaccines, when is it coming, when is it not coming. And that is increasing to our stress. Not meeting any friends or families, people who are living alone, are all alone by themselves, that causes more stress. And that is a reality which we're living through now. What this was prepared before the COVID situation, so I need to change this, because prescriptions for anti-anxiety medications rival the cardiovascular drugs. People are more going in for asking for more stress-reducing anti-anxiety medications rather than for heart problems. So how can you manage stress? The stress can be managed by pharmacological interventions, by asking your doctor to give you prescriptions to calm your nerves, to lower your heart rate, heart rates, or you can do it by non-pharmacological interventions. You can do it by meditation. You can do it by improving your social support. At least now we can even talk on Zoom with people. We can phone people, we can have chat calls, we can do all sorts of things. We cannot see people, touch people physically, but we can see them on the screen. And so we can improve our social support that way. It's a big invention. That's a technological benefits for us now. Another way of reducing stress is regular moderate physical activity. By doing some physical activity, if you're feeling too stressed out, go for a walk, go around the block at least, if not too far, do some exercises. That reduces the stress level in your body. Because it reduces the blood pressure, it reduces all sorts of things. And then you improve your quality of sleep. Try to sleep at least 6 to 7 hours a night. Coping strategies for stress: change the way you look at things. Don't take everything too personally, and don't think you can solve all problems. Take nutrition health seriously. Exercise is one of the best and most efficient ways to reduce stress. I can't emphasize that more often. Exercise is the best relaxation, best for meditation. Get more sleep. You also have to buy yourself some relief. If you can afford it, you have to hire some help to help in the house, or to do your yard work, do your snow clearance, do some. I think sometimes women, as I can speak for myself, as women, we think to ourselves as superhuman. We think that we can do everything, and we never say no to anything. But it's difficult. We cannot do it. We have to stop overextending ourselves. We have to build a support system. That way, the first step in reducing the stress is to take back control of your life. And when you feel in control of your life, you are aging successfully. How do you delay the effects of aging? The process of aging, as I said, is inevitable, but one can potentially delay the effects, the severity of this process. By physical exercise, you can delay the effects of aging. By good diet, by having protective antioxidant food, by staying intellectually engaged, by having these webinars, by going to concerts, which we can't do so now, but we can do that on Zoom, by keeping your brain active, by reading, maintaining social and friendship networks, developing cognitive reserves, by developing your brain, managing stress. As I mentioned, you cannot eliminate stress, but stress accelerates brain aging. You have to learn how to manage it. Again, to recap, aging is a continuous and necessary process of life. You have to accept and understand the process of aging, physical and mental both. We have to accept the inevitability of aging and adapt. Learn and practice what we have to do to keep our mind and body in good working condition through all phases of life. We have to learn to live in appropriate ways to maximize health and happiness. Doing what you love can add to your years. Keep your brain in top shape. So strategies to successful aging is a combination of physical exercise, stress reduction, healthy nutrition, and memory training. They have both all together have a greater impact than each one done separately. You can't do just physical exercise and no health nutrition, no memory training, and say that I'm successfully aging. That doesn't help. That doesn't work. You have to have everything together to be able to age successfully. Delaying the effects of aging, the process of aging, we said, I think we said that. No, okay. Recognizing, another important thing is recognize and express gratitude. Our focus in this presentation is not on anti-aging. Our focus is on aging wisely, intelligently, and gracefully. Aging is a continuation of the life process. You cannot not age. It's impossible. Embracing aging with gratitude for the joys of life increases longevity. A Harvard study on gratitude showed that those who age successfully worry less about cholesterol and more about gratitude and forgiveness. They have a clear sense of gratitude for the joys of life. A study over 22 years of two groups of people, those with positive attitude to aging and those with negative attitude, showed that the positive group outlived the negative group by 7.5 years. So it's good to be positive if you want to live longer. So when you get up in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love, and to enjoy the day. Embrace your age. Enjoy getting older. Getting old is natural. Feeling old is optional. Aging successfully is a matter of choice, and the choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dastoor. So we do have a couple of questions, and I've said it a few times, but please do send your questions in the Zoom chat. We'll start with a question from Eleanor. Let me just find it here. So Eleanor asks, how do we deal with regret? I've matured from the disoriented woman and mother I once was. I regret what this cost my children and I. Despite my strong determination and practice of living well, this sadness persists in my life.
I think regrets are common in that everybody has regrets for something or the other, what they've done in their life, But I think we need to, it's very individual. You need to work on that regret, need to see what the source was. And see, so I think the lady said she has regret with her children.
Yeah, with the
can you read
energy and life she lived when she had children.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some things which you cannot change. The life that you led is what you led. As I said, you have to accept that. You cannot change that. But moving forward, you can make some amends for that in whatever way you want, with your children or with the other people's children, or with doing things which will try to help ease that regret in you. Because you can't go back and undo that regret, undo what you have done. It's impossible. But you have to move forward and do something else, which will counterbalance that, what you've done. That's what I would think.
Very good, yeah. And we also have another question here. This participant asks, are there presently formal studies being carried out at McGill or any other universities to assess the effect of isolation on seniors during the pandemic? How many interventions have been made that are available to address the issues during the year that we've had?
Yes, there are studies being done, even at McGill, even at the Center for Aging. People are doing research on that because that's a very hot topic just now. I mean, everybody is obsessed with it. And I think people are doing a lot of research, but I don't think we have the results as yet because the surveys are still going on. But maybe in another 6 months, you can have another webinar on that.
Yes, yeah, interesting, very good. And maybe we'll take two more questions. One person asks, when does memory loss become irreversible or become Alzheimer's disease?
Memory, I think we all have some sort of little memory lapses, which are what we call the worried normal. people who feel that they have a memory problems, you know, and when they were tested, they don't seem to have any memory problems. But I think if that problem persists, and if the family also keep realizing it, that you're beginning to have more and more problems, there comes a time when your brain cells are really quite damaged, and they cannot, no amount of medication is going to rejuvenate those brain cells again. And there comes a time when that percentage of damage which is done becomes more and more obvious and more permanent. And that loss becomes more noticeable, and that turns into one type of dementia. It can be either an Alzheimer's dementia, it can be a vascular dementia, it can be, there's several types of dementias, you know, but most common is an Alzheimer's dementia. So there comes a time when you yourself are the best judge as to know when that point is arriving that you cannot function anymore independently. I mean, often what happens is when you go to the doctor, your doctor will say, no, that's part of aging. That happens to everybody. Don't worry about it. But you know that you are not the same person. Your memory is not the same as it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. You know, you're forgetting things more, and that is affecting your functioning. And that is the time when you realize that, yes, it's becoming irreversible now.
Okay. And I'll just take this last question. Thank you everyone for sending in your questions. This participant writes, thank you for a wide-ranging overview of aging and aging successfully. And she says, sadly, most of the world does not have the luxury of applying all of these approaches and strategies. And so her question is, do you know of any research that has been done to evaluate the combination of all these strategies?
Yes, I mean, I can't give you offhand, but yes, there are lots of, if you Google it, and if you ask for aging successfully, you have a whole list of different universities and different places where this research is being done. Yes, of course there is none. Of course. And I agree that everybody doesn't have that luxury of experiencing in their own city. There may not be enough resources in their own city to do it. But if you can Google, I mean, thank God for Google, if you can find it out on the internet, you know, you will be able to find something.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Dastoor. This was a wonderful lecture, very informative. Thank you to all our participants, and also thank you to McGill for collaborating with us on this. We have recorded this lecture, and so in a few days it will be made available on the library's YouTube page, as well as the YouTube page of the McGill Center on Research for Aging. I think I got the order right. So once again, thank you very much. Enjoy the beautiful sunny day outside, and everyone stay well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.